All right, here we are. What are we at? Episode 4 of the Branding Iron podcast. I've got Craig with the Loyalty Zone in the office today. Let's go, Craig. Why don't you tell people back home watching online a little bit about your background? Where did you come from? What's your origin story?
Okay, so I'm born in a wonderful country called New Zealand. 4 million people live there, and down the bottom of the world. My background was so interesting. When I was a kid, my father had service stations, like selling
gas
petrol.
stations.
Yeah, gas stations,
Yeah.
And so we'd work for him, and he was quite an entrepreneur, and he actually bought a amusement park. And it had like boats, paddle the boats, and you'd have a trampoline you'd bounce on, and cheer a plane, like sit in it and go faster and faster and spin around, and a little train. And so every second weekend we had 2 partners. One family would look after it one weekend, and we'd look after the second weekend. So when I was 10 years old, every second weekend I was the trampoline. I'd take the tickets and people would go on, and I'd let them make sure they came off, and we had this thing. So that from an early age, that was like that. When I was 14 years old, I used to operate the service station in the weekends on my own.
Okay.
So I'd serve all the customers. So I got brought up in this,
service industry.
Yeah, in the service industry. And my father, he was a tough man, but he taught me some really good things about service. Like, one of his rules was we had to be at the door of the car before they turned their engine off. So they wouldn't have to get out of their car.
Oh, okay, because
get
you
them
pumped
full
their
service.
gas.
Yeah,
for
we
them.
pumped their gas. So we'd be at the door of the car before they turned their engines off. They turn around, there we are, ready to take their order. So he taught me this. I had a customer service ethic really on that's led to my life. And so, that was sort of my upbringing. And then...
You have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I've got 5 brothers and sisters.
Okay.
And I'm not all... unfortunately, my father died when I was 19.
Okay.
So not all of them had that experience. It's funny when we talk now...
Are you the oldest? Or?
I'm second to oldest,
Okay.
yeah. So, I'm in 57, and got an older brother's 59, and then sister and brother sort of 3 years below, and then a younger sister who's 10 years behind me. But it's funny because we've been talking as a family recently just about our life, and we've got very different experiences, because my older brother and I experienced this part of my father with the business, but the others didn't. But my older brother used to clash with him, so he didn't really get involved in that part. He would go and do other things to get away. So, But so that was sort of my upbringing. I always remember that, and I was brought up in around customer experience and dealing with people. So I always really enjoyed that. He used to be called Bob Cherry Jr. So,
Okay.
And then I ended up being a teacher as my first career.
A school teacher?
Yeah, I loved it. I remember the reason why I wanted to be a teacher is I would be in class, and I'd have these teachers who were the most boring people I'd ever met in my life. And I'd sit there and think, oh my God, I could do a better job than this. They were just so, nothing. You didn't want to learn because you'd fall asleep.
It'd be like that Charlie Brown thing.
Yeah.
And
And I thought, and then you'd have a teacher who inspired you.
Yeah.
So that really hit me, the difference that made. And so, I went straight from college, or I think...
In New Zealand? You went to college?
So I went from 16 years old, went basically 17 years old, straight to teacher's college, 3-year education, and I was a teacher for 11 years. And I loved it. Yeah. I really loved the job. I was quite successful. I became a deputy principal. In fact, I got the little unique claim of fame of being the youngest deputy principal in New Zealand.
Wow.
A new system that came in where you're allowed to be promoted on your skill, not your years of experience. And how life, I never thought I'd not do that job. I thought I'd do that for the rest of my life. I remember having these thoughts that I get paid to do this, not much, but, So then of course my own family grew, so I ended up having 3 children, and, unfortunately, because the pay was so bad, I used to have to mow lawns in the weekend, so I developed my little lawn mowing business.
Your side job going on.
Yeah, my little first side job. I used to do more money in the weekend mowing lawns than I did as a week being a teacher. And I called my business, because my last name's Cherry, it was called Cherry Mowers, a cut above the rest, So, and the funny thing is, a lot of my clients were old, right? And they thought my name, so I bought it. A funny thing is, right, I bought this business off Mrs. Gardner, Mr. and Mrs. Gardner, right? And a gardener and lawn mowing business. And then my old customers thought my name was Mr. Mowers. They thought my name was Cherry Mowers. And they would go, oh, I cannot believe that Mr. Mowers bought it off Mrs. Gardner. I tell so many of my friends that I could, how could Mr. Mowers buy it off Mrs. Gardner? And of course they would write their checks to C Mowers, Mr. C Mowers. So I had to go and talk to the bank so they would accept the cheque. You know? So you know, that. But I really enjoyed that. I was very fit in those days as well. And even then I would have this thing, right, because I'm very about numbers and revenue of how many lawns I could do an hour. So if I did 3 lawns an hour, it would be $45 an hour, which back in those days was
that's a lot.
pretty significant income.
Even today, it's a lot.
Yeah. So
for a one-man show.
Yeah, and I think the most lawns I cut in a day were 25 lawns. So I did I used to do marketing, and I used to go to school. I don't know if you have them here, but we've got a called a Gestetner machine, which you run off and you turn it around and it runs off all these little prints, and it's got a smell, like going to a dentist. I can't remember the stuff they use.
Ammonia or something like that.
Yeah, so it's just I used to run those off, and then I'd go and go to school on the weekend and sneak into the office and go and do all this, do my advertising.
So you'd learned this sort of entrepreneurial stuff really early on.
Yeah, really.
Went a different way, but you couldn't not do it.
No, couldn't sort of help myself. Yeah. So, and I would go and put them in just go and walk around the streets and put these in people's boxes. And I think about 2 weeks after I bought that business, it was $800 I bought it for, and I think it was turning over sort of $800 a month. And I won a job with a church just for putting that mail thing in the box, and by that cut was $600, one cut. And so it was huge.
How old were you at this time?
I was in my 20s,
Oh, okay. Wow.
And because I was doing this when I had my children.
Yeah.
And they used to have a tractor used to drive and cut the big area, and so that sort of made it quite successful fast doing that. So so I did that, and I ended up employing my brother.
Your older brother?
Yeah, the younger brother.
Oh, younger.
And yes, my younger brother used to cut lawns for me, so I'd still teach and still be earning money. So
then he could do it during the week as well.
Yeah. So he'd pick up my my 1-ton truck, and off he'd go and cut lawns. He was fantastic. Customers loved him. I think some of the female customers loved him so much that he may have got to know them better than I did, because occasionally when he couldn't do it and I had to mow the lawns, they would come to the window bare-breasted and then notice it was me and not him, and quickly shut the... He was a good-looking young man, my brotro. So
that's hilarious.
Anyway, we said, I said, what do you actually, how do you create the customer intimacy? He goes, no, they do seem to like me, So, when he's an artist now, and he decided to be an artist, and once he decided to move out, I really found it hard to get great people after him, and so I ended up stopping doing that. And as it happened, as I moved up the education system, I applied for 2 jobs. I applied for a principal's job, and I applied for a job outside of teaching. One of the things I've always felt like a lot of teachers often talk about what they could have done. If I wasn't a teacher, I'd do this. And I've always been a sort of person that I'm not a talker. I like to act. And I did wonder what it would be like to be outside of education and try that out. So I applied for a job at lotteries in New Zealand as a regional trainer. And so you're working in an office. I don't know if I'm going to like it or not like it. And look, and then really there's funny things about paths, right? Because I could have got the principal's job,
right,
and been in a country school, and you get a house, a whole different direction of my life. And I won the trainer's job. So I went to work for lotteries, and I looked after the bottom half of.
Now, how much time do you spend trying to debate this? Like,
I don't know. I remember the reason why I applied for it was I was just getting really annoyed. I was a deputy principal. I had a telephone in my class. I had to answer the phone, and I just felt I wasn't doing the job for my kids.
Okay.
I got frustrated.
So what I mean, when you have the path in front of you, like is it a day or 2 or a month or?
I can't really remember now. I'm quite a quick decision maker.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, sometimes too quick. Yeah. Right. I sort of react. But I applied for this job and I ended up winning it. And it was funny because in teaching you get a lot of you get holidays, about 12 weeks a year.
Yeah.
I remember once I started working there, I never missed the holidays. I really loved working there, and I was very fortunate that lotteries in New Zealand because it's a little country, they didn't just follow some model. They looked at best practice around the world, and there was lots of different components of best practice, and they implemented that. And the person who headed it up was absolutely about customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so leading that team, you were just backed all the way to deliver, and our training team was just massively successful. When our average increase in revenue after training was 12.5%.
Wow.
And we had obviously some really big ones, and we would even go and run stores. So our thing is we had to our mentality was we'll prove it. like, so we would take over people's store for the day, and we would increase their revenue by at least 25% on that day, by us just going, we'll serve your customers all day, just to prove what we're doing works. So it became like a bit of a legend.
So this would be what, like gas station type?
No, yeah, it could be in a supermarket, it could be in a bookstore. So one of the things about the lottery sort of kiosk that we had was that all types of businesses, right? And I absolutely loved that job, and I got promoted to be the training manager after about 9 months, and so I ran the whole thing. I developed a 5-day franchise management program, so franchisees would come in and do 5 days, and they have to do it, there's no choice.
Okay.
And a lot of them, like people, especially the supermarket owners who had lotteries, and lotteries was a pinprick of their revenue. You get 7 cents in the dollar.
Right.
They did not. These are guys who are running $1 million businesses. They didn't want to come to a 5-day program. So you can imagine on Monday morning they come in sitting there, going, arms crossed.
It's like those driver's ed courses, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like we had some technicians in our workshop yesterday who were a bit similar. By the time they finished, after an hour, they actually really enjoyed it, but they weren't coming because they wanted to, right? So, but what would happen, of course, especially when you got them for 5 days, and the course was an excellent course. I mean, we taught them everything about the business, particularly the service side, and they loved it.
So stuff that they could use more all across instead of just...
in fact, you're already predicting what happens.
Oh, okay, all right.
So they would do this program and then start to think, can you train... I've got 150 employees.
Okay.
Could you train them in service like you trained me? Because the service, we just led, we were killing it, right? So we would take them out for dinner on Monday night as a sort of to get to know each other. Then we'd take them to dinner on the Thursday night. Just about every Thursday night I'd be taken aside by people going, could you do this for my business? So of course that helped. Started happening more and more, and my brain started ticking away. This was a longer decision because this was like, there's a business here. There's an opportunity here. And a couple of things happened that really stimulated my moving away and leaving that job. One is that I had a great belief about coaching, and I couldn't convince my big boss. Because we would go and train all the staff. The manager would come to a management course. Their staff would come to customer service courses. But we never taught the manager how to coach their people. So we would just do it all. And I would see that, I'd hear from the frontline staff that the manager would say, don't listen to what they say, you just do what I tell you.
So now you've wasted your time.
Yeah, we're just churning money. We were spending so much money. I thought, if we could teach them to coach, they'll keep this rolling when we're not there. So I'd go back maybe 3 times a year to a town and do more, but I could just see that it's like we're wasting. We had $1 million budget. I thought a lot of it was wasted. But I couldn't convince him. He said, no, we have a coaching philosophy inside our organisation. He agreed to that, but not to teach them to coach. And it really sat with me for a long time. I thought, he's not right. I think I'm right about this.
Yeah.
But of course, I had 3 children.
Got bills to pay.
Am I going to quit my job? So I ended up doing that. I sort of got enough interest, and I started working in the weekend.
So would you approach him and say, hey, do you mind, since you said no, would you have an opposition to me?
Well, yeah.
On the side? Or?
Well, no. Well, I started doing it anyway on the side. Then people heard about it, and they couldn't stop me. He tried to stop me using other trainers.
Yeah.
So in the end, I basically made the decision to go. I had 6 supermarkets who wanted to work with me.
Yeah.
I worked out the fact that I needed to do on what I could get paid. It's funny now what I get paid to do what I do. I had no idea what to charge. And I was working for the supermarket, and we were doing this customer service courses, and there was supposed to be 2 of us. We were going to charge $500 each. And then my colleague couldn't come, and he paid me $1,000. So I thought, okay, I'm going to charge $1,000 from now. That was my only science. No more science than that. So I became $1,000 to do a training course, right? And so then I worked out that I had to do 4 days a month or 6 days a month to replace my salary. Okay. That didn't seem too much, so I'd literally have a board on the wall and did a day and crossed off another day and crossed off another day. And so I left. It was a big risk. I ended up buying a house at the same time and changing my car. So all the things that you're not supposed to do at the same time, I did. And generally it worked out well.
Right?
Yeah, it was. Your nuts are on the line.
You get all these expenses, now you're yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And then you had to do it. There's no choice. And I can remember one of the supermarkets pulled out. I remember lying on the couch, having this just about mild heart attack of going, what the hell have I done? Oh my God. What's say this doesn't work? It was the first time I questioned myself. I normally back myself. But even then, I just got off the couch and rang 4 more people and got another job.
So it didn't last that long?
No, it didn't last that long.
Like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me, it's always been a strength is that just get up and get into action.
Right.
Get into action. And so that ended up being massively successful. you know, like, again, one of the things about the lotteries thing, which is this great gift, is that there's all these industries that you would get to meet. So that we had them in service stations. So Shell had, you know, lottos in there. So when they heard that I left, so obviously the guy really liked me.
Yeah.
So when he heard I left, I got a phone call saying, can you come and have a talk to us? And they asked me to do a mystery shop program for them, just to measure who are their top 5 stores.
Yeah.
It was quite cool because you got, you know, drove around the country, got paid to do it,
Yeah.
and, you know, had to drive round and round so you get enough fuel. Because you had to go and put some fuel in. So you'd pick up a car from the airport full. So then I had to just drive around for half a day just to try and use fuel up. So the country roads, it was quite good, you know, going fast. But you know, I did that. But then one of the things I really saw was what they thought was good and what I thought was good were different. So we started having this sort of challenging conversation about, you know, what are you actually trying to do here? And, you know, and I always remember, this was one of the great moments of my life when I won that work. But I met the training manager and he really didn't know. Their system was you get promoted. So you just go to a level, like you might be called a 4.
Okay.
And then your next promotion is to get a 3 job. And it didn't seem to matter what that job was. So the guy who was a training manager had no training experience. Lovely guy, Roger, great guy. He was just using American videos and going running courses, and people watched the video and then filled in a booklet, and that was his
like
courses.
when you have the substitute teacher at school.
Yeah, like it was,
yeah. And you're like, all right, Clive, here you go. We're not teaching anything today.
He had great personality, right? And people liked him, but it was sort of crappy. Yeah. So when, you know, and our training was all experiential training. You had to do it. Mm-hmm. You know, so we had really good philosophies about, you know, repetition practice, and you practice, and we used to video people, get them to watch themselves on video, then practice again. So it was built around very sound principles.
So in the beginning, it was just you, right? Like just you driving around, and then how long before you had to hire your?
Well, I ended up taking half my training team
out
of lotteries, which was didn't make me that popular with them, but that would happen within 3 months.
Oh wow! So
I
rapid
won.
growth here.
Yeah, it was quick. I won some really big stuff, and so the Shell program was one of the ones I just most remember because the big boss told Roger, am I allowed to swear?
Sure.
Well, this is his words, quote unquote. We're not, Roger, just be really clear, we're not using fucking consultants. So that was what we're up against, right?
Yeah.
So we started putting this program. We sort of, the more people you
like
talk to,
he wanted to do it, not.
Yeah. But we just, that was we're up against this, and I thought, I don't know how we're going to get this across. So we started doing some stuff, and I sort of won everyone else but him. The more we talked about it, and they come and do a training with me, and I show them how we do it, and they loved it. We ended up doing a trial, and then we invited the most negative bloody dealers in the country, plus some, you know, sort of a mixture. That was a brilliant idea of mine to mix it up, because the negative ones didn't want to come, were never going to pay for it, and loved it. And then we went and presented to him. We had 40 minutes to present to, I'm trying to think of his name, I can see his face in my mind. And at the end of that 40 minutes, he said yes to a nationwide rollout every store. It was like...
Pop the champagne.
Great, yeah. It was just such... It wasn't just that getting the yes, but getting the yes against what we had to change his mindset about. And he came to every course and presented. We had a thing called the Shoskas, the Shell Oscars, where we do a thing at the end. It was a 5-day program. So imagine the commitment.
Yeah.
5 days, every dealer went through
it,
right across the country, about 200 locations, and that program went for years. So I went from doing trying to get 6 days training, we were doing 50 days delivery a month with the team.
So from the time you left to the time that deal, how long was that?
That deal was probably about 9 months.
That's quick.
Yeah, and
it was
wonderful. The
family was pretty happy that you'd made the right decision, because then maybe they had some doubt in the beginning.
Yeah, I think that my wife, she always backed me.
Okay, good.
She always believed in me, and I think, that's sort of like a really strong anchor.
Yeah.
And so that we did that. So I pulled more team members out, and we were delivering all that, and it was going really good. And then so then you think about how things develop, right? If you do a good job, other people hear about it.
Yeah.
So there's this natural growth. So Australian Shell heard about this program. So they sent their training manager over to come and look at it, and they came and spent a whole course.
So it wasn't a big deal to have an Australian sent over to New Zealand?
No, Australia's a much bigger country. It's very similar, like you think about Canada.
No rivalry there. Right?
No. So they came. But again, then I didn't hear anything. Yeah. Like she loved it and everything, and I didn't hear anything for like a year.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Roger got promoted to run Australia.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I just couldn't understand, because I knew she loved it. I couldn't understand why I didn't get a phone call saying come over and do something over here. Anyway, he got promoted to be the trading manager of Australia, which is
Yeah.
4 million to 25 million, much bigger population, much bigger network, and of course, obviously he brought me with him, and so I was running this course. We did our first sort of trial course in part of Melbourne, and the people said, "Oh, we've sort of seen this before." I go, "What do you mean you've seen this before?" You go, "Oh, this trainer was trying to run this, but he didn't really know what he was doing."
Yeah.
What that training manager had done is given all my materials to another trainer.
Said here, teach
So she
us.
tried to steal my program.
Yeah.
But of course, that was actually a great lesson because you can't steal someone else's work if you didn't design it.
Right.
So what
If you
their
don't
comment
really
was,
believe it,
he didn't really know what he was doing though, so it didn't work.
Yeah.
So we started doing that. Shell, and I picked up lotteries in Victoria, so the whole lotteries business. So I was flying over there. I would do 2 weeks, come home for 2 weeks. Then I started being 3 weeks and coming home for 1 week. So then obviously it became this decision that we needed to move to live in Australia.
Yeah.
And the Shell program was an interesting one because the New Zealand program was all about service. We actually took them from number 4 against Mobil, Caltex and BP to number 1 in 18 months. So it was extremely successful.
Yeah.
And it took about 8 years, by the time you got to get into the network, so it really worked. I mean, there would be articles in newspapers about, I don't know what's going on at Shell. I knew the mystery shopping company who did BP, and they were tracking us, and they were going, "We can see what you're doing.
Yeah.
We can see the improvement. BP's getting really nervous.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on at Shell?" Right? Now, I would never work for competitors. That's always been one of my rules.
Yeah. So pick one and then.
Yeah, pick one and give them everything you got.
Yeah.
So then what happened in Australia, this is probably the makings of where I am now, is they really needed more sales, not just service.
Yeah.
They were selling their fuel sometimes for less than they bought it. So we had to have a sales part to it. Like, you've got to improve the sales of the store. It's hard to do it on the forecourt because the old days of buying fuel was you get oil, but most modern cars don't need any oil.
Yeah.
So you couldn't even offer fuel court.
You don't top it off all
no,
the
you
time.
can't. So you couldn't make. There's no extra income to earn at the forecourt.
Yeah.
So we used to get full service. Well, that all went away because you just couldn't make it work financially, right?
Yeah.
So we developed this program, and look, they'd use another consultant who didn't really understand the industry. And you might remember I was brought up with the service station industry,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah,
knew
exactly,
this industry,
right, yeah.
right? I'd served and served and served. I mean, I could run the business on my own. So we needed to do sales, and the previous person had tried to do all the stuff, not understanding that it's a 41-second transaction. Walk up, pay for your fuel, takes an average of 41 seconds.
Yeah.
So she tried to teach them to have this big conversation going, "Hello, where are you going? Are you going on a holiday? Do you have
Meanwhile,
your..."
everybody's waiting in line.
Yeah, while people are waiting in line, "Do you have your bread and milk?" So they're trying to sell these sort of products, but then either people said yes, they're going to have to leave the queue,
Yeah.
and where's bread and milk? It's in the far corner of the service station where it should be because it's an anchor product, right? But it was a complete failure. It was $500,000 they spent on that program
Wow.
and did nothing. So I said, "Look, give me 10 locations," and I remembered the way I taught sales at lotteries. So at lotteries, we used to sell the ticket and then try to sell scratchies. We call them instant kiwis.
Yeah.
Right, you scratch off.
Scratching wins, yeah.
Yeah, scratch and wins. So that was our add-on product. So we were really good, and we developed a thing called a leading question. By the way, have you seen our latest scratchy?
Yeah.
Right? Just really simple. They said yes or no. If they said no, we explain it. If they said yes, we go, "Okay, yeah, we've just got it on." We wouldn't push it.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll try that technique in a service station. Never tried that before. And I said, "Give me 10 stores." And we went and benchmarked, and we chose a chocolate bar, like it's Cadbury chocolate bar. It's a, chunk bar. It's, like, 4 inches long or something.
Yeah.
And we did them for $2 for $3. So we actually went and benchmarked all of the stores on their previous sales when they had the same promotion.
Okay.
But of course, their previous promotions were in a box, on a display,
Yeah.
$2 for $3, right? So they sold, I always remember these figures, they sold 4,000 bars a month on average across the 10 stores, all combined.
Okay.
So an average of 400 each, right? So anyway, we developed, we had the service part, we added this line in, so when people walked up, so you can imagine walking up for your fuel, you'd say, pump 5, $60, and we go, "Oh, by the way, have you seen our wonderful specials?" It was a verbal and a non-verbal
Yeah.
action. And so they'd look down your arm and they'd see the display on the counter of the chocolate bars, right? And we didn't tell them, it's just $2 for $3. We never told them to buy, we just let them know it was there.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, that was it. So it's called leading question. And so again, here's an interesting thing. So how many bars do you reckon we sold in 1 month? Just doing
at the
that.
10 stores?
Across the 10 stores, yeah. So when it was on special with them, they did 4,000.
Maybe 6,000?
We did 42,000 bars in a month.
Oh my goodness.
That was like, I couldn't believe
Actually,
it.
I've noticed that at Starbucks lately.
Yeah.
I go in, or going through the drive-thru, get a Americano and a breakfast sandwich, Have you tried our scone?
Yeah. Now, they don't need
No,
many people
they-
to say yes to drive significant revenue, right?
Right, and
So-
there's only one store that does it though,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's crazy.
and it just happens to be the one that has
Yeah.
the best service.
Well, McDonald's set the standard early on by doing "Would you like fries?" to go with that.
Yeah.
But the problem with that, because and we'll get into the research side, which I do now. I didn't used to do that. Is people predicted it because it's so repetitious.
Yeah.
Customers would go in, "I want a burger, and I don't want fries," because they would do burger on its own and then try and add, right?
Yeah.
So they had to change. I've done quite a lot of work with McDonald's. And they had to change that system because people, were getting so shitty with it.
Yeah.
So they changed to the combo. So now you don't ever get it off with a burger on its own. You're buying
Yeah.
you might ask for a Big Mac, and they'll go, do you want the combo?
Or
But-
now it's you want any dessert with it.
yeah, so they'll just found another way of doing that. But it was still effective. 7% of McDonald's global sales came from, "Would you like fries to go with it?" So it worked.
You probably don't know this, but my family history is KFC and
Okay.
McDonald's.
Right. Yeah, so you know
before-
exactly.
Before we moved to the States. So,
Right.
yeah, a lot of different things about would you like this, and it's not even about the maybe the extra revenue. It's the thoughtfulness,
Yeah,
because they're gonna, if they forgot,
exactly.
you're oh yeah, you know
Yeah,
what?
and especially if it's a discounted offer, like you buy it separately, so normally there's an advantage of packaging, So yeah, look, and that was incredible. So we
You
ended
do
up,
it at the grocery store, stamps or ice. I don't know why they say stamps, because that's
yeah,
it's so old fashioned. But ice,
yeah,
how many times have I had to go back to get ice?
yeah. That's
And
right. And
I
if you
wish they-
forget, you're annoyed.
I wish I'm annoyed because
Yeah.
they didn't say it.
Yeah.
If
So we
every
call it
time they say it, I don't forget.
we call it product awareness more than selling.
Yeah.
You let people know it's available; they choose whether they buy it or not,
Yeah.
right? And that's been reinforced by the research I do now, where people don't like being sold to in a pushy way. Let me decide, right? So that got us. Obviously, we rolled that out to the whole country.
Yeah.
When you're getting that sort of success, and we actually improved their revenue by $100 million over 5 years. So what happened, of course, from that is that the world heard about it. So I ended
So
up
the
doing.
price went up from $1,000.
Well, I ended up
take
doing
it.
36 countries.
So,
36. We did 36 countries around the world. The only place we didn't touch was the US, because it was sort of done as a separate market.
so when did you first? When was your first trip to the United States? How old were you?
My first trip to the US would be.
Or the year?
No, it was probably 20 years ago, I suppose. Would be
You're
the first
20
time I came.
20 years ago, or
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
So geez,
And I wasn't doing any work really.
late
but-
'90s.
Yeah, it would have been. I was doing all this global work, and we ended up coming over here. And actually, I got invited over here by a competitor of Shell.
Did you notice a difference between what the perception of it was and to what you experienced?
I don't think I really spent enough time. I just remembered I had a team based in Miami because I worked with Shell in Central America, so we were based in Miami, and I had a team there. And I always remember at Miami is that I felt quite thin, because some of the people were really big,
Yeah,
or none of their body moved.
yeah,
So they said they would do these two things. I just remember thinking that, and I went to a store which I actually really like. I always remember going to the Cheesecake Factory,
okay.
and I had never seen servings.
Proportions.
And I couldn't believe it. Like, I asked for mashed potato, and when they served my mashed potato, I thought it was for the 10 of us. Like, I'm not kidding. It was in like this freaking huge bowl,
Yeah,
and and that was just mine.
yeah.
Like, and now the servings are nothing like that now. That seems to have changed a lot.
Yeah.
But that really struck me about. But generally,
That's a 10 out of 10 service, right? You got enough food.
I mean, I mean, you sort of see why people were.
There's a
Could be
story
quite
of this happened a few times with I can't remember the name of the restaurant chain. I think it might have been Earl's. They're out of Canada. Well, they decided 20 years or so ago to expand into the United States.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I got this anecdotal evidence or story from, but the first thing that they had to do was increase the portion sizes from
Yeah.
what Canadians were used to,
Yes.
by about 50%.
Right.
Because everybody, what's
So
this?
it'd
Where's
be
the rest of the food?
Expectations were
Yeah.
you had to have these big serves, of course. And of course, you don't need all that much fuel,
Yeah.
But I mean, I didn't do a lot for a long time. I mean, we did every other. I mean, I've been very travelled, so
Yeah.
we did every other country, and then again, it was very successful. We didn't have one country that didn't improve. I mean, our first year doing the UK, we increased their revenue by £52 million. They paid us £250,000 to do that. It's a pretty nice return. Our hardest one was Germany. We did 1,200 stores. So I used to teach, of course, when you were changing language, I used to teach their trainers, so they'd have to recruit trainers, and we would teach them to run our program. We did a 6-week trainer. So we'd be, and again, the challenge of this was, of course, we'd be overseas for 6 weeks, and they would do 2 weeks learning the program, so just intensive practice again. You'd get up to sort of module 4, then you'd go back to module 1 and do it again.
Yeah.
So just repetition, practice, get feedback. They'd all have mental breakdowns during it because there was so much to know, and then they'd get through it. And so we were very experienced at taking them through. We had a lot of fun as well. Then they'd have a week to prepare all the materials, and then we'd be with them for like another 3 weeks actually running the program.
So when did you come up with the Loyalty Zone?
This was actually called the Productivity Increase Group.
Okay.
So it was actually PIG, pig.
Okay.
So we used to have a upside down pig laughing, and the only time they didn't work was in those Middle Eastern countries where pig didn't go down so well. So we focused on the group.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was my first business that I did. It sort of transformed later on into this. But that was massive. Of course, every action has a reaction. So the problem with that program is my marriage
too much
failed.
Gone.
Yep, I was never home. I think, I talk a lot when I try and work with people now about everything we do is not just about business, it's about life.
So the holistic look at it.
Yeah, like even some of the things we've just done today, right? I mean, all those things apply to life, not just being more effective in business, right? So one of the impacts for me was that, I was making a huge amount of money and just became, I think, basically an arrogant asshole. I expected, I would get the best of service. I'd fly in the front of the plane.
So
I just didn't see it.
Was there a moment where that? What did you call it? The moment of truth. Maybe?
Yeah. I think the moment of truth was when I didn't even know my marriage was in trouble.
And you got
served
papers or something.
Yeah, my wife wanted to leave.
Yeah.
But I think to my credit, when that happened, I actually did sit back and go, how the hell was I so oblivious that I didn't know there was even a problem? If you asked me the day before I found out it was over, I would have said, it's pretty good.
Pretty good for me.
Yeah, exactly. I was doing what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Then what I'd later find out is that they enjoyed living without me more than living with you. And I always say to people, when your family enjoy living without you more than living with you, you got a problem. So that was a transformational thing in my life. Like I had to stop doing that business. My children moved in with me. My wife, she sort of, not just wanted to leave, but really got quite depressed and ended up living on her own in the country and a town. And so my children moved, so I couldn't even do the travel anymore. So it really changed my whole life for a long time. It took me a long time to get over that. So I had to do something different. I ended up doing a different business.
Did you sell that business? Or?
Yes, I sold it to Roger. So actually, what I didn't say is that I actually pulled him out of Shell and employed him to do Australia. So he took over that business, and we had it in New Zealand, and I had to I closed down a whole lot of it, like the UK operation. I closed it all down. So it was a big adjustment, and ended up running another business which is completely unrelated to my.
What's that?
I set up an export trade centre in Melbourne, so it was a permanent exhibition centre for exporters. I saw the model in New Zealand. Look, I didn't do it for ages. I heard about it, saw it, looked quite good.
So what is it? How does it work?
So basically, people would come in and you'd see all these export products on display. So would have these permanent displays, and you could see
in some kind of warehouse.
It was in like a retail store type thing,
Okay.
So I did that. I should have never done it.
Okay.
Hindsight, one is mentally I wasn't.
Not all in.
I was not there.
Okay.
And I was still trying to live an old life, even financially.
Yeah.
But money was running out.
Yeah.
Obviously, going through a divorce, you're losing at least 50% of your wealth and all that sort of stuff. And I learned so much doing that. I took over this, paid for it. I hadn't sold one cabinet. So we had these permanent display cabinets, like about 7 feet tall by 3 feet wide, sort of stuff, right? And with 6 months, I employed a team of salespeople. They all quit because we weren't selling anything.
So you went from like really rapid success,
yes,
to this just what's going on here?
Yeah, I'd have an office, and I remember I'd go for lunch and just try and clear myself to get back on the phone again.
Yeah.
So it ended up just being me in this room trying to sell this. But it was sort of funny. I didn't give it up. I'd already spent $100,000, so it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And thinking back in those days, and I remember I thought, should I just walk away? And have I just done the wrong thing? But I just remember that people really liked the idea. So I was talking to the guys who had the franchise in New Zealand, and I thought there's just something still missing. They like it. No one's saying no. They're not disliking it. So basically, I wanted to spend even more money and actually leased this, office space and bought the cabinets and put people's names on them who'd shown some interest, like it was a bit cheeky, hadn't actually signed up.
What is the cabinet? What
like it's like a display. So imagine it's like 7 foot high, and you can just display your products on it. Like whether you're selling
behind glass or something.
No, not. Well, it depends what it is. Whether you make shoes or you're making. I can't remember all the things we sell. People.
There's no door products on it or anything.
No, sometimes we'll have a door because it's something
like maybe like this with things that you can buy.
Yeah, it could be like a shelf like that. But if it was high value, they would lock it, of course, so people couldn't steal the stuff.
So did you sell the cabinet or this?
Yeah, so really, they bought the cabinet and they put their displays. I had designers who would then help them with display and put all the things around it. Some of the stuff you do is like it would then go from looking white to backing and all that sort of stuff. And so look, slowly we started to sell. So basically, what I found was people couldn't see it from just a picture. They had to visually see it. So we invited people to come, and it existed then.
Yeah.
And suddenly you started selling. But the problem was by the time I got that success, I'd burnt too much money. So I'd burnt over $250,000. I'd lost most of my cash flow. And the ideal model of that model was a monthly payment model.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do that because I had no money. So I'd be selling the whole lot, $6,900 for the year, right? And I'd sell it because I'll be using that money to pay the rent. And you can't sustain, once you're in that position. I mean, I think I kept it going for about 2 years, and it looked amazing. People thought I was I'd be on the magazine covers.
Yeah.
Like, this great Mr. Craig Cherry, the Australian Export Trade Centre, and the government would come and launch the American trade deal was launched, TV and everything from my trade centre. I looked like I was, making heaps of money and really successful, and then basically had to liquidate it. We just ran out. I got locked out of the office. Came to work one day and there was chains on the doors because we hadn't paid our rent. But embarrassing. All the staff were down around the corner in a cafe, wondering what the hell's going on. And I got an investor to give us me money to get it reopened. But then, it was just like, I remember I sat down with him and he goes, "Look, I'm prepared to give you the money to get it rolling." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I believe in you." And I remember that was the day I decided to stop. Because I no longer believed I could. I thought I was going to die of a heart attack. Like what I was capable of doing, I never gave up. I ended up selling most of it on my own.
Yeah.
Right. But I knew that I couldn't
sustain.
So it's funny that one line stopped me, because I thought I can't actually give you that commitment that I can keep this going, that I can do this myself. It was just so tough.
Yeah.
I mean, it showed me what I was capable of. Like really. I can achieve a lot, right?
Yeah.
So I got out of that, lost everything. My brother was an investor. I paid back my investors. My brother's wife was dying of cancer. He put $100,000 into it. It created massive upset in my family. And when his wife died, I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral. It was really shitty times. I was down at 42 years old. I was minus $385,000. I had a new partner I'd met. Amazing person.
And so when was this? What years?
Well, I'm 57 now, 15 years ago.
Oh, okay, yeah. Wow. Okay.
And so my new partner, basically my teenage children, she moved into a house with teenage children. She basically she had $20,000 in the bank, which she'd taken years and years to save.
Yeah.
Just, run her own little business and, very conservative about money, and she kept me alive for 3 months. I had no job. I don't know. She said, why did she stay initially was I owed her money as well because she had guaranteed. She became a guarantor, which, because my brain is always so positive, I never thought that
you wouldn't be able to.
You'd be called on it.
Yeah.
So, so our mortgage got increased because of the banks never not get their money.
Right.
So even though I had a loan agreement of $90,000, I thought that was the maximum the bank could take. They took $300,000 because there was more money.
Okay.
So I didn't realise they could do that. So anyway, they did, and so we just sat there, and I thought, this is not too good.
So now what am I going to do? So you had like a massive success and then a reckoning, right?
But one of the things I think about that was I just sort of stood, and if I can do it once, I can do it again. But then lots of learning. So one of the sayings we have in the Loyalty Zone is you're either winning or you're learning. You know, so what's the learnings of that? One is stick to what you know. I didn't follow the things that I was passionate about, like customer experience and helping other companies. So basically I started to do what I used to do with the Productivity Increase Group, sort of looked at that. I thought, well, I need to go back to that. And I didn't really know what to do, and I read a book. A friend of mine gave me a book by Frederick Reichheld called The Unanswerable Question.
Okay.
And I read that book, and I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning with this like absolute eureka moment. So what I wanted to do was not just train, I wanted to better sort of do research, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to do it though. And when I read that book, it gave me the answer for how to do it. So I created the Loyalty Zone in that moment. That was on a Tuesday, all right? I rang up some clients from the past and said, look, I've got this idea. I want to run it past you and just see what you think. So I rang up a group called Leonard's Chicken. And when the estate manager said, yeah, come and show me, you know. And he said, look, I've got the marketing manager here. They might come in and listen, you know. And I just quickly put some slides together, and I had no idea about pricing or anything, nothing. I just had this idea. And I knew it was a good idea about doing research with your customers, using that research to help you improve, and still doing all the other things we used to do, but doing it from research first, so we know what to work on, right?
Yeah.
So I showed them. She said, I want to do this. Well, this was on Friday. She goes, how much? I just pulled it out of my ass. So I won my first client. So I sold $200,000 worth of sales in the first.
So one thing you're good at is selling.
Yeah, but I believed in it, right?
Yeah.
So it was different selling when it's not really selling to me because I'm passionate.
Yeah.
And so that, you know, look, I mean, I had to go back to them and ask for more money because when I actually worked out what it cost to deliver, I was losing money because I just made it up, hadn't done the math. So, you know, we improved that and then we booked more clients, and that was the beginning of where I got to now, really, which is research plus training and coaching and this whole thing. So it's a total package offer.
Yeah.
And the measurement is the customer's experience. So what we also provide now is, you know, not only can we improve you by doing some of those other things like the upselling and all that sort of stuff, but if we can improve your customer experience, what we proved was it's going to improve your revenue. More customers coming back, more word of mouth. So that became a whole new positioning, really, and that, you know, I guess the same way that took it, but like the Shell thing.
Yeah.
One country did it. Well, same thing started happening with the Loyalty Zone. I worked for a company in Australia. One guy heard about me from a colleague who was doing some work with us, and he got me in, and he just looked after a little bit of the country, and we started doing this program with him, and that had a real success. So then the company decided to roll it out to the total company. He got promoted to run Africa.
Okay, so that's how your connection to some of the stuff you.
Yeah, that's right. And then so he brought me, after 3 months, he brought me over to help him because they weren't getting anywhere, and they didn't have any research, didn't know why customers weren't coming back. So again, if you think about it, why do CEOs get replaced? They either choose to leave or they get told to leave, right? Yeah. So the previous one was not growing, and even though this is a company involved in mining was pumping in Africa. So what the hell's going on that we're not growing? So that was a massive success. We improved their revenue by 19% in the first year and 22% in the second year. It became the fastest growing operation. It was called MTU, Global Business. It was their fastest growing operation in the world. Their average increase of any business was 3.5%. So of course, what happened?
Their competitors are wondering what's going on.
And the head office is coming here going, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So then I end up working in India, China, the Middle East, the US, Singapore.
So it seems like kind of a little bit of a pattern with you is rather than try to go straight to the top, is get noticed for what you can get.
Yeah.
And that referral, or you'll get noticed and then move up from there.
Yeah, where can you get in and just do the best possible job you can.
So that might be a nice tip for a young entrepreneur is that, you know, maybe you sure could go for the CEO of Global, but why not try a regional office?
Yeah.
If you're good enough and you can get the results, then the other offices will notice.
Yeah, and that's funny. Like, so what I found, New Zealand wasn't big enough to get noticed, and only got noticed by Australia.
Yeah, but
Australia got noticed by everyone.
Yeah.
Right. You know. So my passionate belief is just add value. I have a big word, which is value.
Right.
Everything I do has got to be about value. So I'll do whatever it takes to deliver value. If I've got to do something for nothing because I don't think it worked, I'll go and do it to make sure the value is there. And once the value is there and people are seeing a return on investment, the rest gets taken care of. I've never spent money on advertising or marketing or, minimal, with business cards and brochures and things that you need. But
Right.
I've never done any formal
So
advertising.
you've gone with branding.
Yeah, just word
Brand,
of mouth.
Your personal brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and this is like, this is the culmination of my whole business life. What I do now, it's what I love. I can't imagine not doing it.
So you're on the road. What? How many days a year now?
Well, it's going to be much less this year, but last year, setting up in the US, which we did last year, I travelled here 12 times
Wow. So every
in a
month.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. So that, of course, that's had an impact,
Yeah.
which I'm managing at the moment because my wife's got sick of it.
Yeah.
But it took a while to get this market to go. Starting to go now. It actually took me longer. Again, I'm a very positive person. I believe that and again, what we found here is, of course, people just don't know you.
Right.
In Australia, people know, they've heard, they come from someone else.
Yeah.
It takes time to build that up. You can still do the hard yards and that sort of stuff, but and also, that's my wife says to me, why did you need to do a new market? What's wrong with just staying in Australia? Which is probably
The
reasonably
answer
accurate.
is
A good question.
because I just can't help myself.
I can't help
just like
myself,
it.
yeah.
I like
That's it.
doing this.
And I actually quite like I do quite enjoy travel, but not that much. It was too much. But it's I think.
Any
I
plans to move here, or like
No,
you're here
well,
enough?
I could imagine, for me,
Yeah.
I could easily live here for half the year.
Yeah.
I quite like that. I like seeing different cultures.
Especially here in Arizona.
Yeah, in Phoenix, yeah.
Yeah.
And actually looked at a house and there's very cheap housing here. But not for my family. I've got grandchildren now. And,
Okay. Yeah.
so and they all live, so that wouldn't work. If I was on my own, that's probably what I'd do. I'd probably live in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
So, but what people often say, I'm thinking about getting into business, and what do you think? And I know you've been quite successful. And I say, yeah, well, I've had my, like anyone in
Ups and
business.
downs, right?
Yeah, I've never met anyone who hasn't had significant success and maybe significant failure. And I think the failure was the one that teaches you the most. But one of the theme songs to me is, that song, I Get Knocked Down, I Get Up Again.
Yeah.
I just think that's the
What band is that?
business.
You know?
Oh,
Google that real quick. Now it's in my head.
Yeah, I get knocked down,
Yeah.
I get up again. But I mean, and that's what it's like. It doesn't always go really well. It's your ability to get up. Most people, I'd say, do not leave your job. You have to have it absolutely be driven to run your own business. And you'll know this too. It takes something. It never goes all smoothly. It's never easy.
No.
If it's easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of passion. I mean,
Well, it has been pretty. I would say pretty easy the last 8 years.
Yeah.
Everything's been on a constant up and up and up and
Yeah.
up. Not that it's easy. You still have challenges, but there's I guess a fair amount of people that didn't have a business in 2005, so they didn't get to know what it was like in 2008
Yeah.
or 2001.
Yeah, that experience. Like in Australia, we're having a downturn in the property market. So people have been around a long time go, this happens. It's a cycle. Some people never experience it, so they can't believe it.
Yeah.
They've hocked their home and got 80% loans and 90% loans, and now their house property's dropped by 10%. So
That's exactly what happened here, right?
The bank's getting interested in the gap.
Yeah.
Going, well, hold on, I'm not sure if you can, the equity, because the banks will not lose money.
Never.
And you can't walk out, in Australia, you can't walk out on your property. You lose money forever, It's,
on the whole mortgage,
yeah,
not just the second.
So they can call you to sell, force you to sell your property.
Okay, but then then you're out after they.
I
take
know.
the
If
property?
you owe the money, still after that, you still owe the money
Oh, okay. Wow.
for the rest of your life.
So here, I think it's different in each state, but I know in Arizona, the property is, they take the property and that's what they get.
No. So you imagine even my
On
business.
the first mortge, but on the second mortgage, you don't get to walk away from that.
Yeah, so my business, when I owed them $385,000, I had to pay them back $385,000. So we had to put it on our mortgage, and I had to pay that back. So I've recovered, and actually, it doesn't actually take that long, But the reminder for me was go back to what you love, do what you love, follow your passion.
Yeah.
I always think if you follow your passion, you're probably going to do successful. So yeah.
Did you find out what the answer was?
Chumbawamba.
Oh, right.
Chumbawamba, never heard of them.
Never?
No.
Ah.
But
I
that's
remember,
good.
Yeah.
I don't really remember names of bands that well, apart from the obviously the big ones. Chumbawamba, okay. Good song though. So
Get up, get knocked down, and get back up again.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and you can, even if you have a nice run for 8 years, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Someone moves into your market, you get a competitor. Like one of my clients, has they're in the disability, which is Ivan's background in the disability sector,
Yeah.
and another one's just come into their market and just hired 7 of their staff in their largest branch.
It's a
Took
challenge. Yeah.
So they lost 7 people in 1 week. You know, so they're in a state of like shock. They're going to go find new people. I mean, that all takes a long time. So it's
Yeah.
actually, we've had to hold our program back because there's no point doing research at the moment when
You can't deliver on it on
they can't even deliver the result. They don't even have people there. It's going to go down. I mean, we're not trying to set them up to fail.
No.
There's no point. That's not a normal
Don't
state.
spend money on this yet.
No,
Or, like,
that's
get
right.
ready and yeah.
So these things, I mean, this is what happens. But if you do, ultimately, if you do good work, normally you're going to do fine. So, yeah, so that's a bit about my my journey.
That's a great journey there. That everybody loves the what do you call it? Well, they love to know what the person that had it all, lost it all, and then got it back.
Yeah.
So
I don't recommend.
I think I've
this
heard.
reason.
Yeah, no. I think I've heard it described as that the people that cheered you on your way up are cheering even more on the way down.
Yeah, well, they say it's be nice to people on your way up because you're going to beat them on your way down.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
right. You know, but we got very loyal clients, and you know, and it's and I mean, I'm not intending to run a big business anymore. You know, my age, I want to keep it nice and manageable, and just enjoy it, and not have the stress. I used to have 21 trainers.
Pick and choose kind of. Who
Yeah,
you
yeah.
want.
I mean, the philosophy of me is do work you love with people you like the way you want.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't want to work for dickheads. I don't know if you have that term here. You know?
So,
I think Warren Buffett says that too. He says,
Okay.
you know, the
quote him
worst.
on that.
He talks about he doesn't use the word dickhead, but he said the thing he doesn't like, he doesn't want to employ people he doesn't like, or
Yeah.
work with companies that he doesn't like. He'll replace them, but he won't buy into them
Yeah.
because he just doesn't like their values or you know.
Got to be a fit. So.
Yeah, I think so. You're not trying to. I don't want to be. You know, if you're going to push what you're doing all the time. So we've got clients who they want to do this, but they don't really want to do it. You know, our work. What we've proven with our work now is you must deliver a 10 out of 10 experience.
Yeah. So they want the result, but not the.
Yeah, not willing to do what it takes to get it. You know, and I was. You know, so near enough is not good enough. If you really want to do this, it takes something. You know, and that's the passion. That's the love that we have for this. I mean. You know, we don't accept failure as an option with a client. So, you know, I just sacked a client last year, and the reason I sacked them was I didn't really go into sack them. I just really challenged them. I go like they got some really negative staff, and like we did, you know, workshops. We improved them. It was going right, but these guys were just a nightmare to train, and I couldn't understand why they were still working there. We gave them the feedback. These guys are like really negative. Like, I mean. I'm pretty good at what I do, and they tested mine, right? But they did nothing. And one was their receptionist. Like this is their first touch point,
Yeah.
and this is the grumpiest woman you've ever. Never smiles. I go, why is she still? You know, we talk about aces in the right places.
Yeah.
You got to have your right people in the right spot, and she's still there. And I just said, I don't know what's going on, but you know this. You'd say they're really negative, but why is she still here? Why are you doing nothing about this? And then they sort of, first of all, I thought they started having a go at me, going like, well, you know, they don't really see that, you know, listen to you, and I go, okay, fine, well, that's good. Then they said, oh yeah, well, we find them really terrible as well. You know, we find them really negative, and they really hold things back. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
So
What are
do
you gonna
something.
Yeah.
You know, and they said, oh, I think we need to maybe
Think
stop
about it.
training. Let's maybe stop the training. And,
Yeah, because
okay, great.
it's the bad news that's really the
Yeah,
problem.
So I thought, fine.
So-
I think it's a good idea. Why don't we do that?
Yeah.
You know, so
And we'll make sure that probably has an improvement in the scores
yeah,
too, right?
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I mean, in our life, the reality is it's not even about money because you just don't enjoy doing that job.
Yeah.
You know, and one of my colleagues said, I don't want to even go back and do that again. I don't want to do that job anymore.
Yeah.
Because you just, you know, I give everything I've got. You know, I have a lot of energy, and people always talk about my energy, and I don't have to motivate myself to be energetic because just I love it.
Yeah.
But that one,
That's tough.
I've got to get up in the morning and think, oh, jeepers.
Yeah.
Here goes just resistance. And why have that? You know, why do you want to employ people? So we often talk about that. The secret to everything is recruitment.
Right. That presentation that
Yeah.
you had.
Yeah, that's right.
earlier
You saw
in the
that
week,
one. Yeah, you get your recruitment right because most people don't know how.
Yeah.
They've never been shown how, never been taught how to do it, or they give it responsibility to someone else, or they just recruit on technical skill, not attitude and
Yeah.
personality, and then they get people who are technically great but are dickheads. You know, so you understand the term dickhead for?
Oh yeah. I'd
Yeah.
just like to see Warren Buffett say that actually.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Explain about the All Blacks, right?
yeah, there's a famous in New Zealand. We actually have our national sports team for rugby is called the All Blacks, quite a famous team.
Yeah.
And they actually the most successful sports team in the world for the last 100 years. So not bad for a formerly
For
in population.
championships and
Yeah, international
overall record,
team.
Yeah.
Yeah, any sport, right? Won more tests in a row than any other team. So they've now won 2 World Cups and things like that. Got another one coming up next year. So what's interesting about them is that they went through a philosophical change a little while ago because they weren't going so well, and they started looking at their culture. And one of their culture things I looked at was not to have dickheads playing in the team. People who saw themselves above the team. I'm a
Stars,
great
like,
player.
Yeah, like I'm the star of the show here.
Yeah, and it really started to. Even the coaches come from inside the culture now. Young players are taken on tour, but they don't play, just to immerse into the culture.
Yeah.
And you just see the impact of that. We often talk about it because, like this week, we're just working with a client, and what we're noticing is they're going really well, they're improving, but we're noticing the biggest improvements coming from the team that had the least best result last time. So clearly what's happening is when they're not doing so well, they really get their, I call it A into G, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a bit embarrassing, I need to work hard. But then they're now always the big improver next time. So we had first on highway improved, second round, and then Marines now really improved this time.
Yeah.
And then some of the ones that did really well last time, it sort of drop it a bit. So we sort of going, I said, look, this is fine, right? Nothing wrong with this. But have a look at the pattern here. How come you're only going to really you've got to perform poorly before you really get going? I said the secret of great teams is they want to keep getting better even if they're winning. And what's interesting with the All Blacks is that the coach was interviewed and he said, what do you do to keep, like you win all the time, how do you keep, he said, we practice like we lose. We practice like we lose. Yeah. And he said, we have our own game. Like we respect the opposition, we never take them for granted, but we also have how many points we want scored against us, and how many points we want to score, and how many tackles we want to make sure we've made and not missed. And so we have another whole game that we're playing our own game. Our 10 out of 10 game looks different. We don't want someone scoring a try against us. So if they're scoring 25 points...
and if you don't want to win on somebody else's losing the game.
Yeah, and you can see the impact of that it's just constant improvement. And that's what I love about what we do is, even if you're doing really well, how do we take it up a bit? Not in a negative way, like don't honour the achievement.
Yeah.
We really got to honour and make sure people feel really proud of what they've done. But then, what's next now?
Yeah.
And
next?
I talked about lotteries. One thing that my boss taught me there, he said, Craig, we're about excellence, but excellence is a moving target. Every time you think you've reached it, it's just moved.
Yeah.
He said some people are going to find it really frustrating. I find it really motivating, and I personally did as well. I never forgot that. It's always stuck with me ever since.
Yeah.
It's just,
so excellence is a moving target. Yeah.
And so it's not to be dissatisfied. It's just like what an exciting.
That's if you achieve it, right? So.
Yeah, but when you do achieve it, it's just moved again.
Yeah.
So you're never going to be. So some people don't like that because you're never satisfied. You're never going to get there. But it's exciting.
So you're saying the challenge of getting there is what you should be focusing on.
Yeah, and then you see
not getting there.
Yeah, then you look back. Like I can look back 1 year ago and look at the stuff we were doing, which I thought was fantastic then, and I go, oh my God, we're doing so much better now.
Yeah.
I look back 10 years ago and I shudder what I thought was good.
Right.
And that's what I think is really exciting when you go back and look. It just keeps it better and better. So I did a presentation for my client. I've had them for 11 years, right? And I spoke at their conference. And some of these guys see me 3 times a year. They've seen me 3 times a year for 11 years.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what else I've got to say to them, really, And they all come up to me and go, that's the best I've ever seen. That's the best I've ever seen you do it. And I don't know if I did anything magically different. It was a big crowd, like we had a big audience, and obviously
You
it's
get
different.
excited, yeah.
Yeah. It's another level when you're doing that level of presentation. But I thought that was pretty cool feedback. Because I wasn't really in the room for them. I was in the room for all of the other guys who don't see me.
Yeah.
I wasn't even really thinking about, I will always get something, new fresh things, and that there's always something I'll get. But they were really like, wow.
So even after 11 years of improving the
Yeah.
12th year,
There's another bit. There's another bit.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, Craig, this wraps up our interview. Really appreciate you being on the
No,
podcast,
my pleasure.
and let's do a follow up
Yeah.
later in the year when you get back.
Sure.
Awesome, man.
Cool.
Cheers.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
really
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah. Cheers.